Hey everybody, long time no see. This is your host, Theus. I'm here again with my brother Antoine. This time we're doing a Complex Mind, Simple Man installment. I know I don't show up very often. I warned y'all I don't like to record, so I appreciate you checking in. Right? It's going to be a good one. We're going to talk about a couple different things. You know, this is two brothers just chopping it up. We're going to touch on, first of all, I don't know if you've seen it. It's been making the rounds on Instagram and probably TikTok too. I'm not all on TikTok, but where we have the young generation is trying to assert itself in this moment. We have the older generation also trying to assert itself in this moment. And sometimes we are presented at being in conflict.
Right.
And I don't know. We're going to see. We're going to talk it out. We're going to see, should it be viewed that way or can it be viewed another way? I don't know. So, yeah, Antoine, go ahead, man. Bring us in how you like, fam.
Yeah, man. So like I said earlier, I was listening to uh, a reel about uh, Roland Martin was talking to a young man, and the young man was kind of getting at Roland Martin a little bit because he said Roland Martin called him. The thing he had said was that voting doesn't change things. He said does not change things. We can't just be voting to think that the voting is going to be an is all to cure all that happens in the black community. And Roland Martin told him that he was, I think he said garbage. Or
Basically saying he was foolish. I don't
he said
remember what the
foolish.
exact term was. Yeah.
He said it was foolish or it's garbage. That's foolishness, right? And then because he kind of retweeted it and kind of commented on it. And the young man, turns out the young man is down in Albany, Georgia. And this young man was 21 years old. And this young man was actually doing some things, right? And it also reminds me of something I saw on Native Land podcast because they had some young folks, because we were talking about like when old heads and young heads come together and how we think that the old heads think that the young folks aren't involved in anything, and the young folks are saying the old heads won't let them get involved in anything. So you kind of see this play out with Roland and this young man, like in real time, right? But it turns out the young man had actually done a lot of stuff. He had like bought a bus to transport kids to certain to tutoring and stuff like that. He had got he had done some pretty amazing things in his community, right? He had taken the onus instead of saying like, I'm looking for them to do something for me. We're gonna do it for ourselves. Right. He was, and that was kind of like his vibe and his spirit. So I was kind of figuring out. So as I was watching this, I was thinking like, okay, are some of us, are we putting the expectation that we have of how we want to move, and the kids are doing it another way? Are we invalidating what their thoughts are, or how they want to participate in the movement? What are your thoughts?
So I think that it goes into some of the issues we have within our community anyway. And it's an offshoot of just being an American. I can't speak about other nations because I'm not from there, right? But I do know what it is to be an American. And I do know how individualistic we can often be. And then being a Black person in America, how diffuse our community has become. So the way I was hearing it was both of these men were right, but they were right in different scales, right? And one of the things that has always rubbed me wrong about Roland is he has to dominate, but he's trying to dominate not necessarily with information. He's just trying to dominate, right? So he'll interrupt you as constantly as he can. It's one gotcha moment after another. It's volume over substance in many cases. Now, I'm not saying the man doesn't do his homework, because he does, but he just tries to bully you into submission, and then he'll talk with you, right? And that was one issue that exists on a broader scale within our community. The way I feel is the older we get, the less we want to hear from young people. It's like, no, I'm going to tell you what's going on and what you don't understand yet, young buck. And once you accept my basis, then I will allow you to talk. And that energy just doesn't work, right? So when we're looking at a very common perception in our community that I really think we got to dig into, but it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of energy. I don't even know how to do it myself yet, but it has to happen all over the place. Politics is a game of scale, right? So if you're talking about national politics, you got to understand your relative position in the national framework. Roland spends a lot of time in political world, right? So he's going to say, get out there and vote, overwhelm the system, make your voice heard. Our ancestors suffered, died, not even ancestors, because in his case, this is parents. Okay. And he's going to come from that angle. But due to the breakdown in trust and the lack of connection between generations, this younger gentleman, he's just 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 2 generations from where Roland is. So he's going to say, well, no, which is kind of more like where I move in a lot of cases. No, look what we can do. Instead of continuing to talk about what they need to do, look what we can do. Okay. And they end up being at odds because neither can really hear the other one because they've been put on the defensive. Because the reality is the young guy, what he's doing is not scalable.
Oh, yeah, because he's only about the community. He's only about his community.
Well, it's not even that, but he has done much more than any one individual, based on what he said, of course. He has done much more than what any one individual can reasonably be expected to do. So now, in order to replicate what he has done, how many individuals are of his caliber?
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? There's not a machine to create more of him.
Right. And
you have. I'm sorry. Go ahead, bro.
That was the kind of thing that it's like I think there's misconception that there's only one way to show up, right? I think that what he was doing was what he was doing. Just like, but there has to be a myriad of approaches that you do in this movement, right? It's not going to be one. It's not going to be a one. You vote. You march. You organize. It's not going to be all that. It's going to be you engaging on the local level. Now you fighting on it's going to start with your neighborhood first, because we know you build out, like you said, you're talking about scalability. You have to start with your neighborhood, where you are, where you sleep at every day, and then build out from there. You know what I'm saying? That's how you make a movement. That's how a grassroots leadership starts. That's a movement starts. But I think that what was concerning to me was that everybody, we're all trying to go in the same direction, but we're all mad because we're not in the same car, right? Let that young brother do what he can do. Like he's in a positive direction. Yeah, it may not be scalable as far as a national level, which is not, because you're not going to be able to do, how are you going to be able to do that in your local? He's literally looking at his neighborhood right now, what he saw in with him, and he's like, I'm not asking for federal help, but his spirit is what a lot of us need to have, though. We need to have that same spirit. We're not looking for federal help from anything like that.
Well, he has an attitude of pick up a shovel and let's just start digging.
Yeah.
And I can relate so much to what this young man's energy was, because I was that, right? And there's a big part of me that's still that, because, with my organization, that's basically what I'm doing, right? But what he's advocating for is right on target. I'll use it like this principle. If I owed you $20, okay, and you ain't paid me yet, right? And sometimes we bump into each other and, you got on new shoes, or, what I'm saying, your car clean, I know you're not hurting. Why you ain't getting my $20, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so every time I see you, it won't be the whole conversation, but you will hear me say, hey man, where's my money?
Yeah.
So eventually what's going to happen is you're going to start to avoid me, or we're going to be contentious when we interact, because at some point I'm going to say, oh man, where's my money? Right? And I use that analogy or storytelling because that's us with America.
Yo,
America has a debt that it owes to our forefathers. And this is really contentious. People don't really like when I say this part. America owes our people. America doesn't owe me. Okay? Because America didn't enslave me. America didn't do those things to me. But America did do it to my predecessors, and I won't let you outrun that debt. Right? So you don't get to just wait until forever and then say it's over. No.
So that's a good point, because I sent you a meme. I just sent it to you like early this morning. That Andrew, let's see what it was, a president. It was the 9th president, 7th president, something like that. His grandson just died, right? The 9th president of the United States. He's 92 years old, right? Yeah. Was it a grandson? No. Yeah. I want to say it was his son. No, it was his grandson.
No, it had to be longer than that.
It was his grandson. It was his grandson. But he just died, right? So the crazy thing about it was that they talked about how the grandfather, right? How they kind of showed of how having this wealth transfer to him, right? Mm-hmm. So grandfather, president of the United States, dad was a child of the president, right? Obviously, the wealth that he accumulated from plantations, from slavery, from all that stuff like that, and then this man had this wealth that, just renovate his plantations, kept his plantations in the family, just gave off the money he had from the plantations, just gave like $20 million to. This man never worked. Like, he never worked. This is just him living off the legacy.
Yeah.
Right. $20 million that he gave to a college for, some type of, room or wing or something like that for this for the school. So we're talking about one generation from his dad, from his grandfather to him. He still has that. We don't have none of that. That's what when you talk about the legacies, that extrapolate that to hundreds and thousands.
I fully agree, and I understand that sentiment. Like I said,
when people say, like, they say like, oh, that was a long time. It's not me. That wasn't our generation. That's where I'd be like, well, wait a minute now, but you're still very much benefiting from the shit you stole from our family.
That's true, but here's one thing we got to factor in is power, the power dynamic, right? So if you are in the power position, you're able to craft all kinds of distractions and sidestep all kinds of stuff, right? You say, well, that wasn't me, those are my ancestors, or my family never owned slaves. Did you actually do a genealogy search to find out if your family ever owned some slaves? Can you please stop this, man? Right? And then even if you didn't, then you did benefit from the system and the structure thereof. Like your great granddaddy might have been an overseer. Your great granddaddy might have owned the general store that was robbing the sharecroppers, right? Let's stop pretending that the only crime was owning the slaves. Like, let's stop. Yeah. But one thing for me anyway, because I'm really big on uncentering whiteness, is you can spend all your time trying to fight and trying to convince somebody to see your humanity and all that. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't realistically matter. What matters is we can quantify stolen labor, stolen wages. Okay? That can be quantified. They've already done it. Like, the numbers are out there.
It's like 4 trillion.
Right? So you can take that and then you can extrapolate where it would land now. And I think it's important to have a really good, robust discussion about what reparations actually looks like, because one's crafting that discussion. Because
we're letting them craft this discussion for us, though. It's not a direct.
We're not even letting. It's what's happening, right? They hear cash out. That's what they hear. Yeah. Right? They don't hear the fact that white people got land grants and they got free land, they got free slaves, they got all kinds of stuff. All we're saying is, give us some stuff too, right? That's all that's really about it. But what happens is the discussion gets watered down into grievance politics, and now it sounds like we're saying cash us out, right? And No, we need the infrastructure. Just like you had systems put in place to benefit you, put the
Right.
systems in place to benefit us. But it's hard for us to get there. So that's Roland's side, right? This young man's side is kind of the other part I'm saying. He's like, skip all that. I've already decided that they're not going to come clean. They're not going to do right. So
Right.
what do we do for ourselves right now? And for me, it's both. Okay. For me, it's you do need to vote because that's the power system. For me, voting is not the problem. The problem is how we vote. And when I say how we vote, I don't mean voting, red or blue. I'm saying the actual mechanism and methodology we follow to vote. We're voting the wrong way, not voting for the wrong things.
We're only voting on a national level. We're not voting on a local level.
Well, not even that, bro.
Yeah.
Like, yes, we pay an outside attention to national level because it's easier, right? It mimics the church. It mimics family dynamics. It mimics what we think businesses run like, right? So we think if we vote for the head, then the rest of it will follow, not understanding that none of them are the head. So we get lost in the sauce. So we think we get a president. Well, why didn't everything work itself out, right? And that's a lack of intelligence, or not intelligence, a lack of knowledge across the board.
Yeah.
All Americans suffer from this.
Yeah.
But when I say we're voting the wrong way, I mean, this is how one way we should do this. All right. You go to a church. You don't have to have this conversation during church, but you get with your fellow parishioners. This is your family. These are your friends, right? And y'all decide, hey, you know what? Why is our neighborhood always got trash in the streets? Why we got these potholes? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, they gave us bus stops, so the bus stops look all run down, vegetation overgrown, everything like that. We pay taxes just like everybody else. Let's get together with the 5 other churches on this block, and we're going to lobby whoever is in charge of this at the city level, at the county level, to make them do better. That's how you do politics more. And then you were talking about 3,000 people at this point. When you got this many 5, 6 churches, you can put somebody in office in your local election. You can decide who's going to be sheriff in your county. It's not voting isn't the problem. It's the way we go about voting. We keep voting like we're Democrats. No, we need to remember we're voting as a locked out community. We are a swing vote. And so vote like a swing vote. Vote like a block.
But don't you think that voting as a swing vote is kind of like where we put us in a situation where we have people that are thinking like, I think that's kind of spawned the thought of how we have people are voting their pocketbook, right? Mm-hmm. That's how we have people that are voting. Well, Trump says he's going to do this type of taxes. Trump is going to bring this back for, we're going to do this. We're going to
issue voter and all those type of things.
So that comes out of like that. We're the swing vote, and we're going to vote to the issues that affect us only. Not. I can't worry about what y'all got going on. I'm just talking about
what I'm presenting to you is this is how you lobby for things, right? So it's more along the lines of we need a Black agenda, okay? We need to, and it won't be one person. It'll be regional at best. And so let's say you got a Roland Martin, because there's a certain demographic of the constituency of the Black community that leans towards a Roland Martin thought process. Mm-hmm. You got a Tim Scott contingent of the Black community. You got this young man's version, which is more of the ones who have opted out of the system, right? There's a lot of different groups within our community. But at the end of the day, what are the things that bind us that we can more or less all agree on? Employment, housing, criminal justice reform. Those are the same things we've been saying for the last 150 years. So we know that those are our 3 deepest rallying cries. And we all come from different angles, but that's cool. So now you cluster together and you do like I was saying, I got 6 agenda items I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna lobby for this, and we're gonna say, well, in order to get our vote, I represent me, Theus. I represent 4,000 votes. Those votes will go where I say those votes will go. Not because I'm just saying that, but because I have regular meetings and regular interactions with these demographics, these particular churches and communities, and they have anointed me or appointed me or whatever the term can be to be their mouthpiece. And I'm coming to you saying, me, standing in front of you, I represent 4,000 votes. If you want those 4,000 votes, do this, do this, do this. I gave you 3 options. Pick one. Which one are you going to make sure happens?
Well, that's an interesting point you bring up, because like if we use that structure, we're talking about scalability. Does that mean we need the resurgence of the grassroots leadership programs? We need to come back?
Oh, it depends on. I don't know if I fully understand.
So like when I say grassroots leadership program, like you said, I represent this community. I'm this. Let's say, like, I'm just thinking my parents' community, whatever. Let's say I represent Sandfield, Mississippi. I've had the community meetings with everybody. I've been to churches. I done sat down. I had the passes, and we didn't have the kitchen table conversations, and the consensus of what the people that are in my area feel they want is these 6 issues, right? I represent, because we've already talked about this, we've already consolidated this process, that I represent, like you said, 4,000, 5,000, 10,000 votes in my little community, right? From our little town hall meetings and stuff like that we didn't have. This is what my community is saying. So that being said, that's a grassroots leadership model, right?
Okay, I'm with you.
So you done brought up through from the neighborhoods, the neighborhood association. Now you're the spokesperson for these people. Is that a model that, like, we almost need to have our own, like, caucuses, like our own,
yes,
like stuff like that, so we can consolidate? Not because I know we can already say that the Congressional Black Caucus does that.
No,
but they don't. They don't. Exactly. That was supposed to, who was supposed to do that, but they don't come back to the community. They don't get the insight. They don't. That's why the Democratic Party doesn't understand what the needs are of this people. Well,
there are a couple things there. Just to pause.
The only thing they know is that the LGBTQ community. That's the only thing they're aware of.
That's because you're looking at people who are inside the system that we're expecting to push against the system, but they draw their power from existing in that system, right? So
I'm gonna say, David Scott, you ain't did nothing in the damn years you've been there.
I don't know what any of these guys have honestly done. I think it's I'm gonna zoom out just a touch, right? Because I think we have an outsized expectation of what the Congressional Black Caucus can or even should do. And we are responsible for them. Okay. So if we don't want the placeholders, right? Like, what's the dude's name? Representative Clyburn, right? Sitting in there for 30 years as a House member. That means you've been reelected like 15 times.
Exactly.
Okay. That's on us. That's not on him. That's not on anybody else. That's on us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we want somebody else, forget the money. I understand all the money flowing and all this stuff. We always use is so many side steps to what's going on. At the end of the day, is who voted for them. So you got to get involved with your local. If you're serious about it, we got to get involved with our local Democratic chapters, because that's who is deciding who even gets to primary this guy. So before there's even a chance to primary somebody like a Clyburn, it's destroyed before it ever gets breath.
They don't want him primaried.
Right? So what I'm advocating for actually is more of a shadow government. You have the official government of the United States, which we must adhere to and we must follow and abide by, because that is the law of the land. So since that's the law of the land and that's the structure of the government of the land, then we have to figure out how do we massage and push and do those different things. Okay, So now we back out a notch. And this is where I say a shadow government comes in, which is what you were kind of touching on. All right. So there's nothing that says the city of Lawrenceville, we can't all get together, the black folk, right? You can do allies and all this stuff, whatever. But I'm just saying for the black folk, there's nothing that says that our churches can't have regular meetings where they hash out some of these ideas. There's nothing that says the barbershops can't get together and hash out these ideas. There's nothing that says we can't create our own voting system to elect our own series of representatives who then go out and help affect who will run as a primary or whatever. But I'm coming from where this young guy was coming from, plus where I've always been coming from, and acknowledging what the elders are saying, like a Roland Martin is saying, okay, cool, bro. But Roland is stuck in what is the existing system and working within that system. The young guys outside the system, I'm saying, here's how you bring it together. The way you bring it together is we take barbershops and salons. They have their own conclave, right? And they say, okay, well, these are the things that, we actually host monthly meetings and we hash these things out. And here's my candidate that I'm going to run to advocate for the positions of this community, and the churches are doing the same thing and everybody's doing the same thing or whatever. And now we have our own House of Representatives that is only official to us. It has no real power beyond us, right? But now that bubbles up, and now we send our representative to the state level. You got 50 of these running. Now we send that to the state level. We got 50 now individuals who represent 50 communities, who represent 1,000 different entities. And then you see what I'm saying? Like the same thing that government does, we can do it.
Yeah, duplicate. It's like you said, a shadow government. I think that's going to trip everybody up. They're trying to be a shadow government.
But they have. First of all, we got to stop being afraid of vocabulary. This is even our language, but it is our language because it's the only one we know. Mm-hmm. Okay, so a shadow government is really just what's an HOA? A shadow government. What's the trustees and the deacons? Shadow government. You see what I'm saying? Like
it's just governance. It's just governance. Period. There's no governance and organization is not. There's not. It's just when you start saying shadowy government, I want to be out front. They have to be out front because even our own people distrust it.
Yes,
we don't even trust. We don't even trust like not 7 day events. We don't even trust Masons, right?
I know.
They shadowy. They come in the church out after hours at the church. They got the church on a different day. They come in their little hats on.
Little hats, and they got their own private thing. Yeah.
We don't even trust them.
But that's what my point is. The Masons and the Freemasons and the 5%ers and the Hebrew Israelites and the Nation and the Baptists and that's cool. Each of those little groups, y'all come up with who your representative is as a collective, and you send that representative. And now you got, instead of all these different voices, those voices are now represented by a smaller set of people. And then those 20 people, 30 people kind of hash it out. And then they come to their agreements on, okay, look, 8 out of 10 of us agree on this slate of things.
I agree with you. There needs to be and I'm thinking about structure that we have in our communities, right? That we can utilize right now, or even emulate, that we can come to this Black agenda, like you're talking about, right? Come to a Black agenda. What would the structure be to get that collective thought process articulated, and then put into a form of matter that we can then disseminate to those that are either in power, that have been elected officials, like the Black Caucus or the Congressional Black Caucus, so we can say, hey, this is what we want, this is who we are, who we are, and this is how we want, how we want to move forward. So
fair question, but here's what I would say to you. Our job isn't to convince them of anything.
No.
They will either join or get out the way.
Are you talking about the Black Caucus, or are you talking about the powers that be?
The elected officials that we got all over the place.
Yeah,
right?
we're in primary. If you're not going to do this, we're going to primary. You're going to get you out. We're going to get you out.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, but understand it's going to be extremely disruptive. It takes a long time to get what we're talking about. Even what I'm presenting would take 15, 20 years before it even got to the point where it could affect these elected officials. Let's be real about it, right?
Well,
because there's a lot of
25 been in place for 41 years.
So what now?
It's been in place. They've been in place with that plan for over 41 years.
Well, they didn't have it as Project 2025, though, right? It was their entire movement, their ideology, and that's a huge part of it. We have to engage at a cultural level to identify what our ideologies are, what are our standards as a community, and we have to sell that. Once you can sell that, and understand you ain't gonna get everybody, but once you can sell that, then you can start building these other structures I'm talking about, right? But first of all, we have to decide, hey guys, you call yourself a man. What does it mean to be a man?